It's a great honor to be with two people who I respect very deeply tonight for a continuing public program series we have called Another Look. I'm going to introduce our two speakers tonight, but I want to first say thank you to the Questrom Education Fund and the Laffey-McHugh Foundation for making this program free. Please make yourself comfortable. It's a nice, intimate group, off-season group tonight. Our format for tonight and kind of the program's overall objective is really to have a way to approximate and to enter some of the works of art that are on view here at the museum through the lens of an expert that's outside of the field of contemporary art. So we're really honored to have Roland McCook here, who I'll introduce briefly. And of course, we're very honored also to have Gabrielle Rico, who's an artist that has his work on view in an exhibition called The Discipline of the Cave, on view on the ground floor of the museum in galleries 2 and 3, which closes this Sunday. So if you haven't seen it, please make sure you come back before the end of this week. Gabrielle was born in Lagos de Moreno, Mexico, and lives and works in Guadalajara today. He studied at the Instituto Tecnología de Estudios Superiores de Occidente in Guadalajara, and his current practice explores the relationships between humanity and the natural world. Gabrielle has spent the last few days here as a teaching artist in residence. He's been visiting with community members in summer workshops where he was hoarded by a group of children. He was also at a family workshop and an Arte en Español event. So he's been very generous with his time and his spirit, and we're so grateful that he's here today. Today's event comes from Gabrielle's, from his own interest, and asked us if we could put together a talk that would help connect the connection to the animal and natural world found in his exhibition. And so the first person that I thought of was my dear friend Roland McCook, who sat here to the right. Roland is a member and former chair of the Uncompahgre Band of the Northern Ute Tribe of the Uintah and Ouray Reservation, and is a descendant of the historical Ute leaders Chief Ouray and his wife Chipeta. He has a rich and meaningful career that is far too long for me to try to enumerate here, but I would like to highlight that he's worked with the Bureau of Land Management. He's restored oil and shale reserves to the Uintah and Ouray Indian Reservation, and he served on the Smithsonian Institution's Native American Repatriation Review Committee, and it was involved in repatriating several very significant artifacts and objects back to their rightful owners. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize that we are on Ute territory. That's the territory that we are on. It's unceded by the Ute people. So we're very honored to have Ute here. We're very honored to be part of this community in which he comes to visit very frequently now that we've been making friends with each other. And Roland will be back on August 11th to help do a blessing and a ceremony as part of our big anniversary. We're very excited to have such a close relationship with them. So please join me in welcoming both Gabrielle and Roland McCook.
It's on?
It's on.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. So everybody that's not here, raise your hand. You know what? You all pass. I did that a couple of weeks ago in Buena Vista, and I had a couple put it on, and their husband goes, "Put your hands down." Well, I'm glad to be here, and you're just like when we were in high school. All of us Indian kids would all go sit to the back, and now you're doing the same thing. Look at this all. It's all empty up here. So anyway, I'm Roland McCook. I was born and raised on the Ute Indian Reservation in Utah, and specifically the Uncompahgre group. How many here? I'll just take a minute for you that live here. What does Uncompahgre mean? Can you tell me that? Those that have lived here and know what it means here? It's all over the place, Uncompahgre, you know. Well, okay, it's really how you say it is, now you got to try this. Acaparrados. Acaparrados. That's how it's a Ute word, and they did really well in spelling it out in phonics as Uncompahgre. So acaparrados means red water or red pond, and that's what Uncompahgre means. And if you put Nooch behind it, we're called Utes, but that's not our name for us. Our name is Nooch. I'm a Nooch, It means a person. Oh, this, I want to tell you, it was just a gift from him just now a minute ago, because I didn't wear this. This is really nice, doesn't it? And it fits really well with what I've got. Thank you, Gabrielle. So we thought we'd talk about the animals, and the one that comes to mind right off that my people really hold in a special place is the bear. The bear is what we consider the king of the mountain, and because he lives up there by himself and forages for himself. And if you really look at him, he looks like a human being. If he's with, if you've ever seen one laid out by a hunter and stuff, they really resemble a human. But we believe that they're closest to us in the Rocky Mountains and in the mountain country. And he rules the mountain. And so we give him special homage and special recognition for that. And we also recognize that, and then the Creator, who we talk to all the time, the Creator made him in a way, in his bodily functions, that he is so strong during the summer that he is king of the mountain, has his way, but he becomes vulnerable during the winter months. And so in our word, in our thoughts, is that the Creator made him so that he can go to sleep during the winter months, so that he doesn't have to compete with the other animals like the lions and all of those that are faster than him in snow, because he wouldn't be able to catch up in snow. So because of that, the Creator chose to put him to sleep during the winter months. And that's how we look upon him. And when he goes to sleep, then those that can survive in the winter months, in the snow and the elements that come with winter, they can have the mountain. And even we can go up in the mountain and do whatever we need to do without him making a presence. But at the same time, when spring comes, we look to the mountain to hear him wake up. It's our belief that then when he does wake up, and we see him, that spring is here. And he's our weather forecaster, and reminds, because, back then there was no calendars, there was nothing to go by except for the natural elements that the Native Americans followed and observed. And so they would observe these things, and that's how they knew the seasons as they come and go. The leaves during the fall, the bear disappearing from sight, that's the fall, and during the winter, of course. But we also hold him in a special place for our well-being as a tribe. And I'll talk about the legend of the bear right now. And that is that, and this is where this came from. One day, two of the tribal hunters went up on a mountain in the springtime. And as they climbed the mountain way up high, they got tired. They got tired of climbing, and so they lay down under some brush, and they both fell asleep. And they could hear something happening next to them, not more than 10 feet away. And when they woke up, they saw this bear. And he was not more than 10 feet away from them, and one of them got up and ran off down the mountain, and the other one was kind of like frozen there. And this is legend, okay? So the bear looked at him and said, "Don't run. Stay where you are. Don't be scared. I'm going to teach you how your tribe can prosper and how they can bring themselves back every spring to be in a good way, in a good standing. So I'm going to teach you this dance. So just sit right there." And the young man just froze and watched him. And this bear would get up on his hind legs, and he would go towards this tree, and he would claw the tree on both sides, and he would growl as he's doing all of this. And he said, "You go back, and I'll teach you how to sing. which he did, and what to use. And he gave them all of these instructions. Go back to your tribe and teach them how to dance this every spring. When I come out of my den, you'll hear me growling, and I want to hear you growling down there in your villages, so you can take this dance back to your people. And so he showed them the whole thing, and then he got down on his floors and wandered off. And the warrior went back down ran down to his village, and he said, look, I saw this bear, and he taught me how to dance this dance. And so thus the bear dance was born. That's how our legend is about the bear dance. And so these are the instruments that they use. This is a wooden axe handle, because the original was just cottonwood branches notched, and when they notch them like this, they have this. Today it's just a piece of iron pipe, but back then it's whatever they had, another piece of wood or something. But this is a resonator. It's on a tin box, a box covered with tin, and it resonates. And so they rub this stick down, with the downstroke being the beat, and then they have certain songs they sing for this. And you went up there, what's it been, 2 years? Last year, right? It's been 1 year. She went up there to be a part of the dance, and I think you had a great time, didn't you? Anyway, the singers that you're going to see here, they recognized her when they came down here, because when we came. No, where were we? So we were at a powwow. We were at a powwow down here.
Powwow, yeah.
Yeah, we had a powwow, and those singers came down here to do the drum, and they recognized her. They said she was just a lot of fun up there doing this stuff. Anyway, so go ahead and roll this, and we'll see how it sounds, okay? If you have any questions, we'll ask it. So what they have is a round circle made out of brush that you can see in the background there, and it opens to the east. All of our ceremonies, the door is always to the east, where the sun comes up and you receive the morning blessings. And this is also the same, and it goes into the night. This is a long dance, and this guy is kind of like an arena director. He's in charge of the circle. But this dance is done in the spring, like May and June. I think the Four Corners Utes have theirs in April, the first part of April, but it only happens once every spring. But this is a time to gather. All of the people come as either participants or just to watch. And And this has gone on for since the late 1800s and early 1900s, and it's still going strong because all the young people are taking it up now, and that's pretty good. Did you get to do this stuff, this one-on-one? Yeah. So there's two phases. One is a choosing song. The first song is a choosing song where the ladies will come over and choose one of the men to dance with. And then there's a second song, which is a dance song. And then that one, they dance with each other, but they never touch until the arena director will break them up. Then they go on one-on-one. See, look how many people are dancing this. They're spread clear across enough so that they got to make 2 lines out of it. And there's so many dancers that they've got to make it into 2 lines. See how he's directing?
Dancers, are you ready? Dancers, are you ready? Crowd, are you ready? Okay, and all together. 1, 2, 3, just scream. 1, 2, 3. We're looking at over an hour song here. Good luck.
Was this on internet? Okay, she got this off the internet. See how the step, they start out with 2 steps, 1 step forward and 1 step back, and that'll go to 2 steps when they get going. And then they break up into individuals. See how he came by and he puts his stick down between each couple, and then they go one-on-one with each other. And this can go on for a long, long time. So it's a contest between the singers and the dancers on who can outlast the other. And it's kind of a marathon, and you got to have a partner waiting to help you out when you're into this thing. And but they just this thing can go on and on and on, and it's a social event. It's a time for everybody to come together and meet new people, relatives, things like that, and they just have a lot of fun doing it, and it's just a fun thing to do. Some people say they can put spirituality to it, but most of the time it's a social gathering. A time for people to show how they can dance and enjoy themselves, and they make it a big holiday weekend for it. Looks like they need to get the water truck back out there. Okay, that's a typical bear dance. Was access off the internet, but people go there and they just enjoy themselves. You know, when I dance, I've danced every year. I've danced every dance that the tribe has: the bear dance, the sun dance, powwows, and all of them as I grew up. And I participated in each one of these. And so I'm when you walk into this, you're saying to the people there that you want to participate. And so the men sit on the north side, the women sit on the south side of the singing group. And then the first song is a choosing song. And the ladies will come over and choose one out of the men that are sitting there. So if you're there like I am, and I'm also eyeing the ladies over there. I'm a teenager, or I'm not married or anything, because you can't. If you're married, your wife can't choose you, or your family members can't choose you. So it has to be somebody that's not related to you or things. So if you're in there, you're kind of looking at the ladies and saying, look at that, maybe that one, I hope that one comes over here. Here she comes, and oh, all right. You know, or yeah, okay, she's coming. Oh, don't choose me. Okay, I'll dance. So it's at random, they're random. They'll come over with their shawl, like this shawl right here, and they have these long fringes on them, and they will come across there to the men's side, and they'll flip their shawl at their choice. But they got to do it so that it directly aims at you, so that you don't say, no, I think it was. And so it's kind of fun that way. And so, but it's just a social event. There's nothing more. And you go up and you stand. Come on. She's been there. So here I am. I'm sitting here, and she comes across. I'm one of the guys sitting there. Cool. Here comes somebody. And she flips her shawl at me, and I go. And I just go, and she motions. Then she walks back over into the center of the corral, and she stands there along with all of the others in the line. And when the choosing song stops, and then everybody gets lined up, and then the second song is a dance song. And then when that starts, then I go over to her, and then I just stand right here, and all of the rest of the guys line up alongside of me, and alongside of her is all the women. And then when that starts, she'll start it, and she'll come towards me, and I'll back up like that, and then here, and these are the steps. Yeah, and then and when we get going, it comes at a cadence of that rubbing the stick thing, and then we go one step more, and then it starts. But when that long line, they just sway with the music. And then when the cat guy comes along, he divides us all up, and then I put my hand right here, and then she just holds this hand, and then we dance together like this, and make it with a bounce, and like you saw those people. Like that's where they're at, see where the hand, and then she just hangs on. But then they dress themselves up for the festivities, and it just becomes just fun. But when this is if this was the last dance of the last day, then they make it a marathon. The singers against the dancers, and see who quits first. And if the dancers fall, everybody knows it, then the whole thing stops, and everybody looks at that, and you're laying there, so you don't want to fall, and it gets pretty long, and you got to have somebody you choose somebody, a guy like me, I'll choose another guy, say, okay, you'll be my relief. So he stands and waits, and then when I get all tired and I'm looking desperately back at him, then he comes up and taps me on the shoulder. Then he takes off with the lady. Then I just abandon her and I go someplace else and tap somebody else. But normally you stay together so you can outlast the singers. So you dance with both of them. You put both arms on both shoulders, and you stand in the middle, and you can dance with two ladies that way. Yeah, you can. And the young guys, they get all fancy. They do circles and all kinds of weird things, and so. Yeah, it's a gathering of all three Ute tribes. There's the Northern Ute, the Southern Ute, and the Ute Mountain Ute. And they all, when the Northern Utes have theirs, the other two tribes come. And there's probably, 100, can get up to 100 dancers in this. and all the little kids too, but they put them over on one side so that they don't get trampled and stuff, and they have a little section for them. But it's a social gathering. There's nothing, and they want you to be there. They want you to, I have photos in the early 1900s when they were put on reservations and this dance was taking place, that the Army personnel would go there and they'd be amongst the guys sitting in there with the guys, and they get chosen. They were just part of the dance. So it's not prohibitive for people to join in and dance and just have a good time. They want you to know that they're still carrying on their traditions and their Indian ways, and so they want you to come and be a part of it. And several, it's like Michelle, when she went there, there was probably other people there too, that was taking part in that. So, and that's what Bear Dance in a nutshell. It's a big celebration. I think the last one was last weekend in the Four Corners area.
So Roland, I wanted to ask you a question about the bears and the kind of symbolism of the bear. One of the things that I've sort of heard as you're speaking about bears and the way that they come out in the spring, and they're kind of like the weather channel, the original weather channel to let you know that it's springtime. So there's this really important sort of marker of intuition and being able to follow your intuition and follow the spirits that are maybe guiding you, and a marker of time. But I'm wondering if you can say more about if there's any other sort of legends or meaning or symbolism about the bear that's important for us to know.
Well, the bear, because it's almost human-like, we respect him as more than just an animal. My people think of him as, well, when I grew up, he was my grandpa. And my mother and dad would refer to him as your grandpa. So whenever we saw him, you just leave him alone and we don't harvest the bear. We don't, and we don't like that they are harvested in some way. And so, because they're like humans, they eat everything like we do. They're vegetarians and they're carnivorous. And they're just like we are, essentially. And so we compare ourselves to them, and we hold them as something that we would like to have the strength of them. And the bear dance kind of symbolizes that. And we just like to leave them alone. And so my grandpa can run the world, and everybody calls him that, grandpa. So that's how we look at the bear.
Thanks, Roland. I'm going to ask Gabrielle to say a couple of things, and then maybe we can have a conversation with the audience.
Sure.
That can connect. They can connect the bears with the other the other animals that are in Gabrielle's exhibition. So I'll pass this to Gabrielle. I'm going to pull up some images in case you haven't had a chance to see Gabrielle's exhibition, which is called Discipline of the Cave. So I'll pull up this first image, which is the first gallery that you would see when you come to the exhibition. So do you want to maybe walk us through, kind of briefly through what your vision was for creating the two distinct spaces and what your aspiration was for creating this exhibition?
First, I want to thank to the museum. This is it's my honor to be with you, Roland. It's a pleasure to meet you. I very feel attractive to this kind of people, even in Mexico. So it's for me, it's an honor to share with people like Roland. You can feel the power of life in them. Normally, I spend all the Easterns in the many tribes in Mexico, and I'm surprised that the dance at the end is the main event in all these celebrations. I just have a very precise idea about, like, the dance is a social event. For me, the museum is a social event. It's a place you can really feel free to think whatever you want, to have this direct connection with people you normally don't talk. So that's a very, very nice coincidence to talking about these social events. About animals, I mean, I really want to be part of this because for me, my job is not just go from one museum to the next one and just present things without meaning for the local people. So that's the reason I proposed to Michelle to have this kind of connection with the owners of this land, and how the animals are connected with a very spiritual level to the life of some people. Very sad, like in the contemporary life, the animals are more like in museums like this, or they are dead, they are taxidermy, and mostly of my work is refers to how we need to be aware about the natural world. And for the animals, things like very basic, like geometry, is very difficult to understand. One of the most biggest cause for the dead birds in these cities is because they cannot see the mirrors, and it's a very deep situation. Okay, it's very hard to talk about after this guy, but I'm going to do my best. I just propose, I just worked with this in this exhibition for the last year. The first one refers about how we can project ourselves in the objects, in the nature, in the branches, it's very, very nice how Roland refers to the branches, because it's one of my main materials I use in my art. And the other gallery is talking about more an introversive part. So the idea is you need to walk in through the gallery, and at the beginning you're going to see like all the animals look at the sun at the back of the gallery, and once you realize and you turn your face to the front, you see how all the animals look at you. And for me it's a very important point, because you can feel like how you fit in this natural world. Yeah.
So I'm really interested that when you come into the end of the gallery that you mentioned, you see this sun figure, which has the very strong geometric form of the circle. And Roland was sharing with us the shape of the space that's constructed for the bear dance takes place within a circle. So could I ask you, Roland, to talk a little bit about the space because that's constructed every time there's a bear dance, right? It's not a permanent structure that exists throughout the year. It's something that's made special into that circle kind of arena. Can you talk about that shapes?
Yeah. Yes. I guess I just simply forgot to mention that, but they take the corral and build it every year. It's not a permanent structure. So when our people live in an area where there's cottonwood trees, and so our corral, the structure is made out of cottonwood trees. They'll go down and cut the saplings that you can bend while it's green, and then they make this corral, and it's about that tall, and it's kind of like horseshoe shaped. It's a circle with the opening towards the sunrise to the east. And like I said, all of our openings are toward the sunrise. And it's, they harvest the trees as uprights, and they build a whole thing every year. It's, then they take it away and use it for firewood, dry them all out, and then use them for firewood during the winter months. So they keep a stock of all of the used stuff in an area, and then let the families come and get them during the winter. And then during the summer, spring, they go and get some down on the river bottom on the floodplains where they're not going to live a long time anyway, and so they just take them out of that area. And in the southern Utes, they don't have those trees that we have, and so theirs is out of pinyon juniper that dominates their area. And so does the Four Corners. They use pinyon juniper, and so it's much more thicker and much more foliage on theirs. But they do the same thing, and it's you rebuilt every year again. So yeah.
I'm just kind of putting this together even more, that the sun that Gabrielle made has this opening kind of at the end. So can you tell us a little more about how you decided to make this form and how it came together?
Again, a very nice connection is like apparently the geometries in our basic life is. I heard like when Roland described this circle, and the geometry can be the beginning for a very deep ideas. The dance of celebrate the life, but it's around a circle. So my process is I found a branch in the sun with that shape. It's a curve, and I complete the form of the sculpture with on other contemporary materials. But I use a volcanic rock there. So my idea to construct the sun in this, I mean this reference to the sun is just try to combine the natural shapes and the shapes we can create like humans with technology, and stick together and demonstrate like if we want, we can live in a very pacific life with the nature. We don't need to destroy them. That's the basic idea.
Thank you. I'm going to go to another slide just to show some of the other animals that are featured in the exhibition. So there's, here's an image of what you first see when you come in, a bear and a deer, which everyone can see too. And then you also are confronted with a fox, javelina, which I forget how to say in English now, a boar, and a beaver. Roland, are there any other either stories or symbolism that came to mind? I walked you through the exhibition earlier, and I'm wondering if anything came to your mind as we saw the other animals that were there.
Well, the animals that you've got there is, I'll just call them by Ute name. This is a pawich, and DH, Cuyagat, Kuchina, and Sinatwef. We have a name for each one. And I speak Ute fluently, so it's not, I grew up knowing these. I grew up in a place called Desolation Canyon along the Green River. It's if you know Green River, it's Green River, Utah. You go up Green River about 20 miles. It's just out there nowhere. And that's where my parents were ranching, and they had a cattle that the government said, you're going to be a rancher or a farmer. My dad said, okay, I'll be a rancher. And so they said, okay, we're going to give you these cattle, and you take care of them. And he said, how do I take care of them? And so anyway, because we're hunters and gatherers, but they wanted us to be ranchers and farmers. So he learned how to be a rancher, I guess. And so that's where I grew up. But I grew up with animals. When you wake up, you hear the birds, and you hear the animals in the mountains where we lived. The ranch house was next to the river, but there's nothing but nobody for miles. And so you learn to coordinate yourself with the animals, and you learn. I'll talk about my father, because he's much older, and me, I was just learning. But he would talk with the animals, and he would, as we rode on our horses, he would say that deer, talk about the deer. He would talk about the pawich, and how he for a little guy can dam up a whole river, and he can do things that are powerful. He'd tell me how we need to respect even the smallest insects. He would go out there and say, lay down with me, and he would part the grass and say, tell me what you see here. And I would lay next to him and say, And so he would And I say, well, there's ants here. And you say, yeah, the ant. They're the tiniest little ants here. He said, who engineered those moving things on this tiny ant? Who sat down with a microscope and engineered those arms to move? The Creator did all of this. And then right here, you can see him busy, running back and forth between whatever he's doing. And you need to be respectful to these little animals. And the way he tells the story is that we have a character. His name is, he's a coyote. And he's in all of our stories. And on this one story, he's walking along and he's always hungry. He's always looking for food. And he's walking along and he comes upon this lizard. And the lizard is got his two little hands up on this huge tree. And what he did, we caught the lizard unaware, and because he came in back of him, and he saw this lizard, and he's hungry, so he's going to pounce on him. But this little lizard is got two hands up on this tree and his feet on the ground, and he sees him just in time, and he says, "No, don't you eat me! Don't you eat me! I'm a very important part of this world. If you eat me, the sky's going to fall down." And the coyote said, "Well, how's that going to happen?" And you've all been in where tall buildings, and you look up there, and the building looks like it's moving, it's going to fall. So the lizard says, "Look up there on this tree." And the coyote looked up, and the tree was going to fall, and he said, "See, I'm holding up the sky." And so you can't eat me, because if you do, the sky is going to fall. It's going to be your fault. And he says, "Oh, yeah, right." And he said, "Well, I'm going to let go, and you look up." So he let go, and the coyote looked up, and it's starting to fall again. He said, "No, you can't, hold it." And so the little lizard jumps back up against the tree, and he's holding it up, and so he says, "See, if you eat me, the sky's going to fall." And so he was able to talk him into it. And he says, "And by the way, I've been holding this for like 3 days, and I've just got to go. I have to go to the bathroom. So if you hold this for me, I'll be back, because I got to hold this. That's my job." And so the coyote said, "Well, really?" And he says, "Yes, because I'm going to let go. I have to go. And when I do, you hold on to it, and you hold up the sky." And so he says, "Here I go." And the coyote said, "I'm not going to do this." And he said, "Okay." So the squirrel ran off, and he looked up, and the sky was beginning to fall. So he jumped to the tree, and he hugs the tree, and he's holding it up. And every time he'd look up, it started to fall. So he'd push harder and harder. And as time went on, he got weary. He was holding it, and his legs was getting weary. He'd turn around and put his back against the tree, holding it up there, because every time he'd look up, it would start to fall. So he'd push harder and harder. So he did that for a long time, and then he started hollering, "Lizard, lizard, where are you? Come back here." And he didn't get an answer, and he just kept, and by then he dug a deep hole in the ground all around it to keep it standing up. And then he said, "Well, okay, I respect you, lizard. I respect that you're smarter than me." And so he ran off into the trees, and when he got up on the hill, he could see the tree just standing there, and the lizard just got away free. So that's a story that we were told when we were kids.
One of the things that I really love about having come to know you, having come to the bear dance, and one of my favorite things about art and powerful artists like Gabrielle are the way that they are able to tell stories, and tell stories through either oral means or visual means to capture our attention and to ask us to go deeper within our imagination to become a better person. So thank you for these stories. Thank you for your exhibition. We have about 10 minutes left, and if anybody would like to either ask for a story from either of our esteemed guests today or any other questions, I'll turn the mic over to our audience now. And don't be shy.
I'll just tell one more.
Please.
Okay. You guys didn't laugh at the last one, so just bag that one. So anyway, Coyote was walking along again. Like I told you, he's hungry. There's lots of stories about this coyote, you know, and I only can remember one or two or three. But the one I remember is he was walking along. Oh, there's two I remember, but I'll tell you the one. And he saw these, he was hungry again, and he's looking for food. And so he came upon this pond, and all these birds were sitting on the pond, floating around. And he thought, which one should I go after? And they're all swimming away from him because they know him. And so, but they all look alike, and he didn't know which was male or female. And so he waved to one of them and said, "Come to me, come to me." And this bird said, "No, you're going to eat me." And he said, "No, you come. I want to know what you are. What are you?" And he said, "Well, you see me. I can swim around." And he said, "Well, I don't know what you are because you all look alike. Look at you, hundreds of you in this pond, and you all look alike. You're all gray. You have nothing." And he said, "Okay, I'll do you a favor." He said, "You come to me, and I'll make you an individual. I'll make you be an individual." And he said, "Really?" He said, "Yep, come to me." And so he said, "I'll trust you." So he came to him, and he said, "I mean it." I said, "Because I want to be able to tell you apart." And so the coyote went over and picked up a brush or a weed, and then he mashed one end of it. He went and got some clay, different kinds of clays, and made him into paste and stuff. And he told this bird that was floating around on the water to sit still. So he went about and he pulled his nose out, and then he plucked his head a little bit and stuck his feather up a little bit, and then he painted the one blue and green. He went, and all of the birds said, "That looks cool. He looks different than me." And so they all floated up close, and so one by one, he painted the birds into different type of birds, mallards and all the others. He painted them. He said, "I'm going to make the boys more beautiful than the ladies so that you can attract these ladies." And so he made the boys all colorful and made the ladybirds some other more dull color, which they are today. And so he went about and did all of this to all of these birds, and they became different, and they became so that they could identify themselves and became separate. They all began to be in separate places where they congregated with each other, and then he thought, that was cool. And so he walked away from the pond and came upon this animal laying on a ledge. And he walked up to him and he says, I bet I can do this to him too. So he went up to this animal. He was sleeping. He crept up to him and he pushed his nose in and went up there and drug his tail clear out and made it long, made his arms long, and did different things. And he went about doing this to all these animals. So the animals became a lion and became different kind of cats. He took one's cats and pulled his ears up and became a bobcat, things like that. These are stories that were told to me when I was a kid. So, and my dad would say that's why all these animals and birds are all different, because Coyote came and changed them all up, because they all came one size, one color in the original way. And so anyway, those are just some kids stories that I was told when I was a kid.
Any questions from the audience or comments?
It's been interesting. Just we've enjoyed it. I mean, it's been a wonderful talk. Yeah. No, I don't want the microphone.
We want to hear the other story, as maybe as the closer. You can tell us the third story if you
Another story?
don't mind. Yeah, to close.
Coyote again was walking along, and he came upon this pond, and sitting next to the pond was this big fat frog, and he was going to pounce on him again, and then it was too late again, and because the frog looked up at him and he said, "Don't you dare jump on me." He said, "Why not?" He said, "Well, I was going to jump in that water, but then I saw something in that water that scared the hell out of me." He said, so I don't dare jump in that water to get away from you because there's a monster in that water." And Coyote said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, he's a really ugly monster." And he said, "Go see." So the coyote goes over to the edge of the water and looks down there, and oh my gosh, there's some monster and looking right at him. And he says, "Oh, cool." So he goes back to the frog and says, "Yeah, I saw it." He says, "Did you see him?" He says, "Yeah, I saw him. He was looking right at me when I looked down in that water." And so he said, "See?" He said, "You better leave me alone because there's a monster in there and I can't go in the water until you leave." And he says, "Well, I wonder if we can just jump in there." And he says, "Yeah, jump in there." So he goes back over there and looks over again, and he's still there looking right at him. He said, "Boy, he's ugly." He said, "I know." He said, "I've seen him before." And he said, so he said, "Well, I'm going to get in that water and jump in there and kill him. And I'm going to eat him." He said, "Yeah, go do that." And so the coyote goes over there and sees him, and he goes, "Oh my gosh," looks at him, and he's looking right back at him. And he said, he looks at him again. He just jumps in the water, and comes back up, and the frog's gone. And he says, he got away from me.
Thank you for the story. Gabrielle, thank you for such a wonderful exhibition to give us a great opportunity to share in your work, share in the connection to our local lands and to the histories that live here, and some really incredible stories. Especially our gratitude goes to Roland McCook. Please join me once more in giving our gratitude to our guests.